Thank you so much for joining us. We have to leave it here, but thank you for your perspective. We'll continue to follow this story. Now to protests in Cameroon, perhaps one of our most requested stories to follow up on by our community. This is Ian Glaze, a journalist who pitched this story to us.
Since the last time we spoke here on the stream about the protests in Cameroon, the situation has actually gotten worse. We're seeing an increase in the death toll. The number of persons that have died as a result of this crisis is alarming. We've also seen that the people have shifted their demands from what they initially started demanding last year, which were reforms. We're asking for reforms in courts, in schools, in the way French and English is being used. But more and more people here, especially in the last 2-3 months, are now demanding for independence and asking for a separate country from the present-day Cameroon.
An Anglophone separatist movement in the southwest and northwest of Cameroon is gaining momentum. Protests have been raging for a year now, shutting down schools and courts, and recent violence between security forces and opposition activists killed more than 17 people, and that's according to Amnesty International. Cameroonian President Paul Biya has condemned the deaths, and his government has refuted reports of a massacre in the region. Both sides are calling for dialogue and resolution. Here to discuss the ongoing issue with us, Eugene Fongwa. He's a Cameroonian journalist for the Standard Tribune. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming back. It's almost a year since you were last here. Let me share this with you from Judith. Judith says the violence by Cameroon army has aggravated the situation, radicalized and made more extremists. You need to demilitarize the southern Cameroons. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you reporting on? The atmosphere, if you could take us into these English-speaking regions, what would we see?
Right now, the situation in the English parts of Cameroon can best be described as uneasy or calm since the violence on October 1. Remember that October 1 is the year, the date on which the English parts of Cameroon became independent and then joined the French-speaking part of the country to form current-day Cameroon. And on that day, activists came out to symbolically declare the independence of the state because, as one of your listeners has pointed out, it's become an increasing demand for the creation of a new state of Ambazonia or Southern Cameroons. So right now the region is tense. It's not certain that schools have fully resumed. Partially, the courts are still yet to see lawyers show up, and the number of troops in the region has gone up more than threefold.
This idea of seceding, breaking away, it sounds strange. We weren't necessarily talking about this a year ago, Eugene. Where did it come from?
No, it's always been there. The separatist movement in the Anglophone Cameroon has been there for decades, except that for a long time it had been dormant. And when the demands began late last year for reforms in the way the language is used, in the respect of cultural, linguistic, as well as legal and educational differences, that kind of rekindled the separatist spirit. And while the government was delaying in responding to these issues and preferring to use force to crack down, the separatists found space and sprung up and have now taken over the struggle.
You know, Eugene, we've gotten, of course, a lot of tweets about this, and many of them are from people pushing for the independence movement. But we also know that the internet was blocked for some time. And so how people are getting around that is interesting. This is John, and he says, the movement has evolved with social media blockage. A group of Anglophones based in South Africa launched SCBC TV, which is satellite based. And the news is mostly directed to Anglophone people because they have no other way of talking about their issues. Eugene, how are communications right now? And is this an effective way of making sure that people in the diaspora can talk back to people in the country?
I think one of the major consequences of the blockage of the internet was the creation of the Southern Cameroon's Broadcasting Corporation, which has been doing a lot of, in quotes, propaganda and driving the message of the separatists It's broadcasting via satellite, and so many people, even in the most remote parts of Anglophone Cameroon, with simple satellite dishes on their roofs, can receive signals. And they have been communicating a lot. So they have been able to mobilize and educate the people on the conduct and to come out en masse to protest, as we saw on October 1. So the channel has been very instrumental. The government still had to shut down the internet. Right as we speak, the internet is only partially available in parts of the northwest and southwest. So there's been a second shutdown.
Eugene, I don't want to give away your secrets, but you're coming to us via Skype. How do you do that?
No, I'm in the UK right now.
Okay, all right. Let me just ask you this about Cameroon's Anglophone crisis. And we were asking our community, economic deprivation, is it about language? Is it a cultural issue? This is what Arthur says. All military and other trainings in Cameroon and most official documents are done in French. No one cares about the Anglophones. Still the issue, or has it changed in the past year?
That hasn't really changed. I mean, the government has created something they're calling a multicultural commission, a bilingualism and multicultural commission, which is intended to address issues like this. But at this point, we still see a lot of communication coming out of government offices in French. It's interesting to note that the language of command in the Cameroon military is French, which means that Anglophone soldiers must take orders in French. And so it's things like this that have caused many Anglophones to feel that there is a systematic attempt to erase their identity, especially at the level of the language. The government did do something that is interesting, launching for the first time in the 60-year history of the country, a department of English instruction at the School of Magistracy and Administration, which is a school that trains the country's top magistrates and administrators. That just happened this year, and the first students are currently being enrolled.